All right, welcome back, everybody. I appreciate your guys' patience and sticking through that break. If you're just joining in, we have gone through 3 segments now. We talked about in our first segment Dak Prescott and quarterback contracts around the NFL. In our second segment, we did the first episode of our MLB offseason files. This one talking about the Yankees. Again, we will hit all 30 teams eventually. And we just finished talking about some coaching news in the NBA with Doc Rivers, the Milwaukee Bucks, and everything that has been surrounding them. In this segment, we're going to swing back to the NFL, talk about some updates on the headline story of yesterday, Justin Fields, and some other news that's been going around, along with some interesting conversations that we were having here in GSMC with NFL quarterbacks. But remember, if you would like to be a bigger part of the show, all you need to do is go to streamelements.com/GSMCsportsnetwork/tip. Again, you leave a donation. We'll have a little conversation with your message streaming across the bottom of the screen there. Again, streamelements.com/GSMCsportsnetwork/tip. We really appreciate everything that you leave. But without further ado, we're going to get into a little bit of a conversation around some quarterback expectations in the NFL. So this topic right here is really come from a discussion that we had in our production meeting earlier today when we were talking about Bryce Young with the Carolina Panthers. And there was some discussion there about, do you give up on a guy like him? And it's a little early for that, at least in my opinion. Bryce Young, first overall pick to the Carolina Panthers last season. They ended up giving what would be the first overall pick this year as well away for him. Now, that is a lot for a guy like him. But labeling him a bust already is a little rash. And it's one of those things as sports fans that I think we do a little too much, which is recency bias. You know, there were echoes when Russell Westbrook went to the Lakers and the Clippers, and he was struggling. People were saying that should he even be a Hall of Famer, which absolutely he should be, and that's kind of gone away as he started to play better. But there's all these examples around any sport you can think of where analysis is clouded by recency bias. And it can be positive recency bias, and it can be negative recency bias. But looking at a guy like Bryce Young, looking at the situation he was in Carolina, and obviously you can't blame his struggles entirely on his situation. You can't blame his struggles entirely on the fact that that offensive line was atrocious and that his number one weapon was a 35-year-old Adam Thielen. You can't blame everything on that, but you can absolutely take some exceptions to that. You can absolutely give him some slack. It's unfair to hold a rookie quarterback to the same expectations that you hold Patrick Mahomes to. And for the most part, I don't think most people are doing that. But I have heard some people bring up the idea of, is he a bust already? And sure, maybe he is. Maybe. But if you're really ready to throw that label out on a guy this soon into his career, you would have given up on guys like Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Drew Brees, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Peyton Manning holds the record for most interceptions thrown as a rookie. Look what he turned into. One of the most clinical and surgical quarterbacks in the NFL. A guy that if you said he holds the record for rookie interceptions, most people would be shocked by. You could give a million guesses, and Peyton Manning, unless they knew, would not break the top 15. Right? And a guy like Drew Brees, who a lot of people forget started with the then San Diego Chargers and was in a battle to start. He ended up losing his job to Phillip Rivers, but he didn't start off his career very well. And if you just took the first season of these guys and you threw them away in the trash right after, you would be robbing the NFL of two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. You know, not everyone is going to come out and start like CJ Stroud did or start like Andrew Luck did right out the gate. You can't expect them, regardless of how hyped of a prospect they are, you can't expect them to be that right away. They're a rookie. There's a transition. There has to be a transition, especially when you are going to the worst team in football. There has to be some kind of transition. And this is not to excuse Bryce Young's play. He did not play very well. If he does that again this season, he's basically on his last leg. He's out of excuses. But to give up on him 1 year into it is a little bit insane to me. It's putting way too high of expectations on a guy like that. More recently, Trevor Lawrence, who was regarded as a generational prospect, kind of disappointed coming out his first year in Jacksonville. You know, he had to deal with Urban Meyer. He had to deal with the whole situation that was. And he came out in his second year and led the Jags to the playoffs. And he's turned into a really good NFL quarterback. Again, you have to think about more. You can't come to these conclusions so quickly. You have to take a look at everything around him, and you have to take in these situations. And you have to really, really sit there and decide, was it his fault? And sure, some of it was. But to give up on a guy like that already really, really is insane to me. It really shows the amount of impatience, because you have to be patient in the NFL. You can't expect everyone to be elite right out the gate. Bryce Young wasn't some kind of generational prospect. He never was. He was a great prospect coming out of Bama, but he never was a generational prospect. So to expect him to do these things is frankly a little insane to me. But that's all besides the point. He's going to get another year. He's going to have to prove it. In that same division, you have the Falcons, a team that Justin Fields is rumored to go to. And Justin Fields was our big story yesterday. Justin Fields is... the big story yesterday was that he unfollowed the Bears on social media, on Instagram. And on a podcast with the St. Brown brothers, Equanimous and Amon-Ra, they asked him why he unfollowed the Bears on Instagram, because everyone was talking about it. And it wasn't as big a deal as everyone thought it was. What he said was he just didn't want to hear it anymore. He didn't want to hear the trade talks. He didn't want to hear, oh, are they going to draft me? Or are they going to keep me, or are they going to draft Caleb? Are they going to trade me? Where am I going? That's been the big story of the offseason, and he didn't want to deal with it anymore. So he unfollowed both the Bears and the NFL to get it off his timeline, which is completely reasonable. It absolutely is. And you kind of forget a lot of times when you're covering athletes that these guys are just guys. They're people. You know, they're not so far above us that they uh, don't deal with these same things. If you were put in their shoes, you probably wouldn't want to hear all this noise. You know, they just kind of want to relax a little bit. So blowing stuff like this out of proportion is what everyone does. It's our job as media members to try and find anything to get a scoop to figure out exactly what is going on. Uh, but Justin Fields just wanted to be left alone a little bit. He wanted some peace and quiet away from the NFL, away from all the stress. I'm sure it's very stressful in his shoes right now. He doesn't know what's going to happen because it's out of control. It's not in his control whether or not he stays with the Bears. So we'll have to see. That's the update on that story. Uh, that's our show. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you would like to catch up on the rest of the episode that you missed, it will be up on YouTube later tonight, up on all streaming, all platforms where podcasts are found. Go check us out there. Go subscribe to GSMC Podcast Network, GSMC Sports Network, and remember, in the future, if you'd like to be a bigger part of the show, you can leave a tip or donation by going to streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork/tip. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Let's go.